Good morning, students. So we are today discussing the last unit of our syllabus, that is semantic analysis phase. As this unit is a theory unit, I am going to explain this using PPT, though I have tried covering all the examples which are necessary, and mostly from this unit in GTU question paper, there is 7 marks question of example, which is also repeated multiple number of times, which I have covered in PPT as well. So let us understand semantic analysis phase, the basic information required. Also, this unit is very important for your GATE or any other competitive exams as well. So let us understand what semantic analysis does. So today we are going to discuss about semantic analysis phase, and semantic analysis phase is the fourth phase of compiler. It is the third phase of compiler. So we start with lexical analysis phase, syntax analysis phase, and then we come to semantic analysis phase. So the output of syntax analysis phase will be fed to semantic analysis phase. So what basically semantic analysis phase will be doing? Semantic analysis phase is adding meaning to whatever statements we have written and try to identify whether the program we have written is meaningful or not. So semantic validity is done by semantic analysis phase. So let us first of all check that what semantic analysis phase is doing. So semantic analysis phase is checking for semantics. It is reporting errors, uh, disambiguate, overloaded operators. If suppose you are having operator overloading, function overloading, in that case also semantic analysis phase is playing a major role. It is also handling type checking. It is checking static. It is also considering static checking, that is type checking, control flow checking, uniqueness checking, name checks. We'll see these all one by one later. So if we try to understand a statement, for example, if we have a statement like we are having if b equal to 0, or then a equal to b and semicolon. In that case, how semantic is going to be checked? So we can check over here the statement that if a equal to b is true, then we are going to perform a equal to b, and then semicolon is terminating the statement. So what kind of attributes each and every node in the tree can have? So we can observe over here that equal to is the comparison operator, and hence it can return you either true or false. So it has data type boolean. Whereas b and 0, that can be integer, a and b can be integer, and so on. Equal to is assignment operator, so again it can have integer value. Semicolon is a terminal which cannot have any data type associated. So if we are talking about data type attribute to be associated in this particular grammar or in this particular statement, then we can show that how semantics are attributes, or in our case data type as attribute is associated with the example. So this is just a sample example. We'll be understanding it step by step later. So when we are talking about lexical analysis phase, the type of errors lexical analysis phase is generating is invalid token error. Means if you have written your token incorrectly, then the error is generated by lexical analysis phase. The kind of errors the parser is generating is when your statement which you have written in your program is not following the rules of the grammar. Then parser, that is syntax analysis phase, is going to generate the error. Okay, but there are certain kind of error which parser is not going to generate. What kind of errors? So when you have written a statement that is syntactically correct but meaningfully wrong, then syntax analysis phase is not going to generate any kind of error. So there is a level of correctness that is deeper than syntax analysis phase. Some language features cannot be modeled using context-free grammar formalism. So our context-free grammar may not be checking all kind of semantics or meanings, and hence we require semantic analysis phase. Fine. So let us take some examples of beyond syntax, means what syntax analysis phase cannot do and semantic analysis phase is going to perform. So let us take one example. For example, I have declared string x, integer y. We can have character array as well declared over here. Y is equal to x plus 3. So what is wrong over here? We have declared y to be integer, whereas string is x is string. So the problem over here is if you write this, if you input this to syntax analysis phase, it won't find any issue. It is syntactically correct. But when you go to semantic analysis phase, then you will realize that as per the meaning, that you are going to associate with your sentence, with your terminals and non-terminals. Y will have the attribute, meaning that y is a variable which has data type integer, whereas x is a variable, it has data type character array, means string. So when you try to add x with 3 and store that in a string, that is not compatible, and hence semantic analysis space is going to generate error, because here the assignment operator, you, if you want to assign integer to somewhere, then either the on right hand side you should have float or integer, you cannot assign it to string. Okay, the use of x is a type error over here. Fine. Oh, sorry, we had been trying adding 3 to string and then storing integer, which is not possible because adding integer to string is not compatible, and hence error will be generated. But this error is not going to be generated by syntax analysis phase, but this error is generated by semantic analysis phase. Let us take one more example. Suppose I have declared a and b to be integer, and now I am performing the operation a equal to b plus c. Now what is wrong over here? Now see, syntax analysis phase is not going to generate any kind of error here, because a valid declaration statement is there and valid operation is performed over here. But then what operation? Consider the second statement as semicolon as well. It is missed by my mistake. So what is problem here? C is not declared earlier. Before use, C is not declared. So again, syntax analysis phase is not going to generate any error, but semantic analysis phase will generate. Now see, in the previous example also, please consider semicolon at the end of the y equal to x plus 3 statement. Okay, so an identifier may refer to different variable in different part of the program. What I mean by this, suppose we have written a program where we have declared x to be integer in main function, then we have called a function add, which is going to add two numbers. Now inside this function, we have declared one local variable of the function, and the name given to it is also x. So we have understood that the earlierly declared x is in main, while the x which we have declared in the local in the function add is local to that particular function only. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So what happens over here? An identifier may be declared at different nesting levels. So they all copies of the variable will be different. That need to be considered as different. That is not reused variable. Okay, an identifier may be usable in one part of the program but not another part of the program. Okay, so fine. So what compiler need to know? Whether a variable has been declared, are these variables have not been declared, what is the type of the variable, whether a variable is a scalar, array or function, what declaration of a variable does each reference is using, if an expression is a type consistent, if an array used like aijk is consistent with the declaration, does it have three dimensions? I have taken here generic declaration statement. You may consider it, if it is C statement, it should have three square brackets to indicate ijk, different um, indexes. Okay, fine. Let us move ahead. So continuing with the same, what compiler need to know? How many arguments does a function take? Are all invocation of function consists with are consistent with the declaration of the function? So what when you are dealing with function, what is important? How many arguments a function is taking? Now with function you have declaration also, call also, and body also. So in declaration, body of the function and call of the function, at all three places the prototype of function must be same. Means the return type should be same, name should be same, number of arguments should be same, the data type of argument, the sequence of the argument, everything must be same. Okay, if an operator function is overloaded, which function is being invoked? Inheritance relationship. Class is not multiply defined, methods in the class are not multiply defined. So all these things compiler need to know. Now how we are going to answer these questions, how compiler will come to know about all these questions? So these issues are part of semantic analysis phase. Answers to these questions depends upon values like type information, number of parameters, etc. Compiler will have to do some calculation to arrive to this answer. The information required by computation may be non-local in some cases. So all the examples we have seen earlier, which compiler need to know, all these answers are going to be given by semantic analysis phase. Okay, how? So basically semantic analysis phase will be using context-free grammar, which is revised. A context-free grammar need to be made context-sensitive grammar, or let us say it can be extended attributed grammar. So the context-free grammar, which was base of syntax analysis phase, is going to be converted to attributed grammar by attaching attribute to it. Okay. So how attributed grammar is going to work? So a generalization of CFG where each grammar symbol has attribute associated with it. So if suppose I take the desk calculator grammar, I'm sorry, E derives E plus T. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to associate some kind of attribute to each and every terminal and non-terminal over here. Okay. So values of attributes are calculated by semantic rules. Two notations of associated semantic rules with the productions. Now, when we say that in our rule, we are going to attach attributes to each and every node, which kind of attributes we are going to have? So attributes are of two types, and how to represent them, how the semantic rules are going to be written, that also can be done by two ways. The first is syntax directed definition. And the second is translation scheme. So if you refer to GTU papers, there are two basic type of questions which are asked. A grammar is given and you will be asked either to write syntax directed definition or you will have to write translation scheme. Okay. Now what is difference between syntax directed definition and what is a translation scheme? So we can see over here that syntax directed definition is a high level specification. It hides implementation details. Means how you are implementing or how you are calculating the value, those details will not be incorporated in syntax directed definition, that is SDD. Explicit order of evaluation is not specified, means which particular node's value is calculated first, which later. This order of evaluation is not going to be specified in syntax directed definition. What happens in translation schemes? That indicates order in which semantic rules are to be evaluated. It also allows some implementation details to be shown. So this is the basic difference. Though they have a lot more similarity also, we are going to discuss that also in detail soon. Okay. So if we talk about SDD, that is syntax directed definition, and translation scheme, conceptually both parse input token stream, both are building parse tree, and they traverse the parse tree to evaluate the semantic rules at the parse tree nodes. Okay, their evaluation may generate the code, save information in the symbol table, issue error if any semantic error is there, and perform any other activity. Okay, attributes. Now, as we have even discussed earlier, we are going to associate attribute to each and every terminal and non-terminal in our grammar. What kind of attributes? So basically attributes are subdivided into two categories. Now this has been asked many times in definitions, so focus. The first kind of attributes are called synthesized attribute. The second kind of attributes are called inherited attribute. What is a synthesized attribute? The attribute whose value is evaluated using the value of the child nodes is called synthesized attribute. And what is inherited attribute? The value of the attribute which is calculated using either parent node values or sibling node values, then that node is called to have inherited attributes. So these are the two kind of attributes any node can have. Okay. So if we take a formal definition of attributes, then each grammar production A derives alpha has associated with its set of semantic rules of the form B is equal to a function is applied to C1, C2, C up to Ck, where f is a function and either B is a synthesized attribute of A or B is an inherited attribute of one of the grammar symbol on the right. So B can have either inherited attribute or synthesized attribute. If B is having inherited attribute, its value is going to be calculated from parent node or sibling nodes. So function f will take either parent node value or sibling nodes value. If B has synthesized attribute value, then function f is going to have value from the child nodes. Okay, fine. So let us talk about synthesized attributes. A syntax directed definition that uses only synthesized attribute is called as attributed definition. We'll see one of the example of grammar which is as attributed definition, where each and every node is going to have only synthesized attribute, no inherited attribute is used. A parse tree of S attributed definition can be annotated by evaluating semantic rules for the attributes. So we can have value at each and every node after the semantic action has been applied. So what is important here? What is S attributed definition? A definition which has only synthesized attribute. A grammar where each and every terminal or non-terminal only has synthesized attribute. That grammar is called as attributed definition. Okay. Now, as we are going to write SDD, that is syntax directed definition for desk calculator grammar. Okay. So the first rule we have taken is the augmented rule, where we have E dash derives E, or let us say L derives E. Fine. The first we are going to write on the left side, we have written the production, which is part of context free grammar, which we have used earlier in syntax analysis phase. While on the right side, I am going to write the semantic action, or SDD, equivalent to the left side context free grammar. So if my production is E derives E plus T, equivalent semantic action is going to be what basically E derives E plus T is doing. Actually, we are right now focusing on which attribute? Value attribute, because the operation plus, we may have type attribute also over here, but right now we are talking about value attribute, which value is going to be evaluated. So if I will be using the rule E derives E plus T, basically this rule is giving you what information? If you add E and T, both whatever value they are holding, then it will generate the result of the node which is on the left side, that is E. Fine. So semantic action can be written as E dot value is equal to E dot value plus T dot value. Okay. E dot value is equal to E dot value plus T dot value. Fine. Now if the rule is E derives T, in that case, E dot value is equal to T dot value. Means the value of T is going to be assigned to E. Okay. If your production is T derives T multiplied by F, means T and F, if multiplied, they will generate the answer in the T. So, T dot value is equal to T dot value multiplied with F dot value. See, it's simple. Just this arrow is converted to equal to, and T is converted to T dot value, F is converted to F dot value. Okay. Now, T derives F. So again here in place of arrow, you can consider equal to. So T dot value is equal to F dot value. F derives bracketed E. Now say bracket is used only for overriding the precedence. So we can consider this as F derives E, and hence F dot value is equal to E dot value. Finally, F derives digit. We can take ID also. So F dot value is equal to digit dot lex value. So this is the entry point where the value is going to be assigned. You may have over here ID dot value also, if you have ID here. Terminals are assumed to have only synthesized attribute values, of which are supplied by lexical analyzer. So all the terminals, in our case, the terminal over here is digit, which is going to be assigned the value. So the terminals are going to have synthesized values only. Okay. Now, start symbol does not have any inherited attribute. That is also we need to focus on. Fine. Now, we need to see that this definition has which kind of attributes, synthesized or inherited. Mostly, if you see the rule, then also it is very clear which kind of attribute it has. What happens over here? The value of this E, left side E, is calculated by the right side nodes. So value is evaluated from right to left, means bottom to top, and hence synthesized attribute. If you observe all these rules, the value is calculated from right to left. Means on right side you have operation which is calculating some value, and it is assigning that value to the left side non-terminal. Hence, all these rules are evaluating, or they are calculating synthesized attributes. So we can even observe this better ways by drawing a tree, parse tree. Suppose we have to evaluate the value 3 multiplied by 4 plus 5. Okay, so how we are going to evaluate that? So the first operation we are going to apply is multiplication. So we have multiplication here. Okay, so the rule which we are going to apply is, okay, we parse, there is how we are going to parse L derives En, then the lowest precedence operator is plus. So E derives E plus T. The next highest precedence operator is multiplication. So E will be converted to T, and then T will be converted to T multiplied by F. Then this T will be converted to F, and F will be converted to ID. Right? So this is how we are evaluating the, we are parsing the tree, string and drawing the parse tree, right? So the same sequence have been drawn over here. Now, the first we are going to assign value of 3 to the first node, that is F. You can observe over here. Next, that value will be assigned to F, and that is going to be assigned to T. Fine. The next value is going to be assigned from to this ID, which will be assigned to this F also. Fine. Okay. Now the next operation it will be applying is multiplication. So what will happen over here? See the value. Let me go back and explain again whether it is bottom up or not. You will understand. So value is assigned from child. If you will observe that what we have said, the terminals will always have synthesized attributes. So value is assigned over here first of all to ID. Now f dot value is equal to id's value, id dot lex value. So the value of id, that is child node, is assigned to the parent node f. Observe. Okay. Now the value of f is assigned to value of t. T derives f. So t dot value is f dot value, and hence f's value is assigned to t. So that value is propagated from child to parent. So if your values goes going from child to parent, what it is called? Which kind of attribute? Synthesized attribute. Very good. Okay. Now we'll move ahead a bit. So what happens over here? Once again, id's value is assigned as 4, and now this value of id is going to be assigned to the parent node f. So once again, child to parent assignment, right to left assignment. So synthesized attribute we will have. Okay. Now what we are going to do? Multiplication is going to be applied. Now see, this is also right hand side of a production, and value is calculated 3 multiplied by 4, and it is assigned to the parent node capital T. So 12 is assigned from child node to parent node. So T also has synthesized attributes. Now this value of T is going to be assigned to the parent node E. So again, E will also have synthesized attribute. Okay. See, E also has synthesized attribute. Now we are going to assign value to this ID. So the value of ID will be assigned over here, which is always synthesized. Now the value of this ID is going to be assigned to F, that is the parent node. So again, child to parent value is assigned, and that's why it is called synthesized attribute. Okay. Again, the value of f is assigned to t, so synthesized attribute. Now e and t will be added, and the value will be assigned to the parent node, that is capital E. So child to parent value assignment. So the star symbol capital E is also going to have synthesized attribute. How? Let us see that. See, 17 is calculated, and that 17 is assigned to the start symbol, and hence we are going to print 17 as an answer, which is a synthesized attribute, right? The same we have written in the rule as well earlier. Let us take the example of inherited attributes. An inherited attribute is one whose value is defined in terms of attribute of the parent and siblings. Means for a node, if the value is calculated either from the parent node or sibling nodes, then it is a inherited. It has inherited attribute. Now, let us take one example. Suppose this is type declaration grammar. The first rule says D derives TL, means type list. Okay. So the second rule says T derives real. The next case says T derives integer. Then L derives L1 comma ID, and L derives ID. Okay. Now to understand how value is assigned, we need to first of all see the parse tree. So we can rewrite these rules. So let us first of all go to parse tree. Suppose here we have to derive real. You can take float also over here. Real x comma y comma z. Okay. So as per the productions, how I am going to evaluate, the first rule I will pick up is TL. D derives TL. Okay. So I'll pick up that rule. D derives TL. Now I require 3 variables. So what I will do next, this L will be deriving L1 comma ID. Okay. So L will be deriving L1 comma ID. Once again, I will require 3 variables, not 2. So this L1 is deriving L1 comma ID. And finally, the L1 will be deriving ID. Right? So these IDs are called X, Y, Z in sequence. And we have a rule which says T derives real. So that has been also used over here. So this is how this parse tree has been created. Fine. Now we are going to assign value to it. So how the value assignment will take place, let us see that. So you have to focus here, because few of the nodes are synthesized attribute, few of the nodes have inherited attributes. So understanding that in detail is very, very important. So see. Okay. So as we have discussed earlier that the nodes, which are the leaf nodes, the terminals are always going to have synthesized attribute. So this T, if you observe, gets the value from the child node. So what we are going to do over here in this grammar, to make the distinction between synthesized and inherited attributes, the synthesized attribute will be called dot type, and inherited attribute will be called dot in. So we can say this is synthesized and this is inherited. We can differentiate. I repeat, the nodes which have synthesized attribute, that data type we will call dot type. and the node which has inherited attribute, that data type we will call dot in. Both are data type only, but just to indicate between synthesized and inherited, we have used two different notations. So here we can see child to parent value assignment is done, and hence the node T has data type dot type, that is synthesized. Okay, and the value which is assigned is real. Now what this statement is going to do, let us focus on TL statement. What that statement is going to do, this whatever data type this type variable has is going to be assigned to the entire list. Means if suppose you have statement integer a comma b comma c, then a b c is a list. It will have data type, whatever data type the type variable has. In our case, the type variable has the data type real. So it is going to be assigned to the entire list. You can observe over here the data type is assigned from sibling. You can observe that data type is assigned from sibling. Hence, it is inherited value, inherited data type. So we have used the attribute dot in over here, and the value is real itself. Now, the rule which we have used over here is L derives L comma ID. L derives L comma ID means what we are doing over here in this rule, the list is being expanded. List is being expanded. So what will be data type of this right hand side L or ID which we have written as Z? Whatever is the data type of the entire list is going to be data type of each and every variable which you have in the list. Means if I have written integer a comma b comma c, a, b or c, all of them are going to have same data type integer only. So similarly, whatever is the data type of list over here, L over here will be data type of right hand side L and ID. So we can observe over here, parent to child value assignment takes place. So which kind of attribute? Yes, inherited. So this right hand side L will have inherited attribute, as well as this ID will also have inherited attribute. How? Like the value of this L will be assigned to Z, or the parent will be assigned either from sibling or parent, the value is going to be assigned. Now similarly, this L will be expanded to L comma ID. Again, list is expanded to list comma ID. So the data type of this L is going to be the data type of the parent L, parent to child assignment. So once again, it is inherited attribute. Okay, fine. Now that value is going to be assigned to the value of the ID. So this is the terminal. So all the terminals are going to have which kind of attribute? Synthesized attribute. Now wherever I am calling this function add type indicates symbol table entry, as Dhatri madam has explained. For each and every identifier, a unique symbol table entry is going to be maintained. So here we are indicating that this data type is going to be returned in the symbol table entry of X. Fine. Now the value of this L is going to be assigned to Y also, and in symbol table the entry will be made for Y also. Similarly, the data type of L will be assigned to Z also, and in symbol table the value will be assigned for Z also. So see, this is also the sequence how this expression is going to be evaluated. This will be called dependency graph also later, because the evaluation of this particular semantic rule, after that only this rule can be, the next rule can be evaluated, and so on. Means if I want to assign the data type to L, first of all T must have data type, then only L can have data type, and hence these semantic rules can work only in sequence. So the semantic tree we have designed, then that can also be called dependency graph. Let us go back and understand the grammar over here. So we have seen that what the first rule is doing, you can consider T as type and L as list. So D derives type list. So what this rule is telling you, list should have data type which is stored in the type data type. Okay. So whatever is the data type of capital T will be assigned to L. Now you can observe over here how you are assigning the value from left sibling to the right sibling. Sibling to sibling assignment is taking place, and hence L will have which kind of attribute? Inherited. So L dot in is equal to T dot type. Okay, next rule. T derives real. See here, over here we are assigning the value real from child to parent. So this is synthesized calculation, synthesized attribute. Hence, T will have what kind of attribute? Type attribute? Dot type. So T dot type is equal to real. t dot type is equal to integer for the next rule. Okay, so once again, once the value is stored in t variable t dot type, that is going to be assigned to the entire list, and hence sibling to list the data type is assigned. That's why L will have what kind of attribute? Inherited attribute. Coming to the next rule, we have taken 1 as a subscript to differentiate between the both variables on left and right, which are same. So whatever is the data type of these L on the left side, that is going to be assigned to L1 also and ID also. So it is parent to child value assignment, and hence L1 dot in is equal to L dot in. And for ID, what we are going to do? Make the entry in the symbol table. So function will be called add type, make entry, whatever you called. So add type id dot entry comma L dot in. So data type, whatever data type is there in this L variable, parent variable, that same data type is going to be assigned in id data type field in symbol table. Okay. The next is L derives id. So whatever is the data type of list variable L, the same parent value is going to be written in the child value. So ID's data type will be stored where? In symbol table. So add type id dot entry comma L dot in. So this question has been asked many a times. This and previous one, this one. So what kind of question is asked for 7 marks? Write down desk SDD for desk calculator grammar and the type declaration grammar. So if it is asked for desk calculator grammar, this is your context free grammar on left side and desk calculator SDD on right side. Okay, so similarly you have to write. This will get you 7 marks. Imagine writing only 5 to 6 line and you will get 7 marks without writing any katha, any explanation. Okay, fine. Similarly, for if you have been asked, write down SDD for type declaration grammar, or if suppose the grammar is given and you have to write SDD, that is syntax directed definition. What all details you should have? You need to write only these 5 lines and you will get 7 marks. See, this is so scoring. And if you will refer to past GTU papers, these are the questions which are repeatedly being asked. Write down SDD for, and there are only 3 or 4 kind of variations possible, which we are going to discuss. These are 2 variations which are most frequently asked for 7 marks. Write down SDD for either desk calculator grammar or type declaration grammar. Okay. I hope it is clear. This we have already discussed how the value is being propagated. What is dependency graph? If an attribute B depends on attribute C, then the semantic rule for B must be evaluated after the semantic rule of C. Means if my value of B is depending on C, then C should be calculated first. After that only B can be calculated. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Suppose the operation I'm calculating is C is equal to A plus B. Then C can only be calculated, evaluated if A and B's value is available. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Let me repeat. If the operation is C is equal to A plus B, then unless and until the value of A and B is available, C cannot be calculated. So if an attribute B depends on an attribute C, then we must calculate it first of all C, and then only B should be calculated. The dependency among the nodes can be depicted by a directed graph, which will be further called dependency graph. For example, whenever we have following type of production, E derives E1 plus E2, then the semantic action is E dot val is equal to E1 dot val plus E2 dot val. So as I have said earlier, you can evaluate the value of E dot val only when the value of E1 is available as well as the value of E2 is also available. So what is going to be dependency graph? First evaluate the value for E1, then get the value of E2, and then see this arrow shows that once these 2 values are available, then only E dot value can be calculated. This is example of dependency graph. The previously whatever we have drawn, this is also one of the dependency graph because we are showing the arrows. See, this is a parse tree with dependency graph. So green arrows are showing you dependency. Let us take this example. So this is the example of real ID comma ID, ID1 comma ID2 comma ID3, which we have seen earlier. So this dependency graph we can see over here. Okay, so this was our syntax tree and this is the dependency graph. So if we draw both, it will look like this. And dependency graph means you have to show syntax tree also, and you need to show by arrow how the values are going to be assigned. So this as a whole along with parse tree, I should not say syntax tree, this is parse tree. So parse tree added with the semantic actions along with arrow showing which action should be evaluated first and which later is called dependency graph. Evaluation order. Now, if we have a situation like this where we need to evaluate something first and something later, evaluation order matters. So, in a topological sort of dependency graph gives a valid order in which semantic rules must be evaluated. That is called evaluation order. Means I can provide the sequence for this grammar. Let us say I can provide the sequence that first of all you must evaluate either the rule number 1, rule number 2 or 3. Then you can have rule number 1, then only you can have rule number 4, and then only you can have rule number 5. So that is the sequence in which operation must be evaluated in a topological order. So this is going to be topological order for us. So topological order is the sequence in which the semantic action are going to be performed. Okay. Now a syntax tree, this has been covered by Dhatri madam. What is a syntax tree? It is a condensed form of parse tree. Okay, so I have just covered it once again. We can see over here the example of syntax tree for each B, then S1 or as S2. Okay. Now over here we have taken the example of syntax tree. E d row z plus t. T d row means id multiplied by id plus id has been drawn as a parse tree, and that can be converted to syntax tree. So what we can see over here, what is difference between parse tree and syntax tree? Both are giving you actually same information. Semantically they are same, but syntax tree is condensed form of parse tree. It has lesser information. It only considers terminals. It don't cover parsing information. Where parse tree provides you finer information. It provides you the information of which production is used and which not. Right? So parse tree contains terminal, non-terminal both, whereas syntax tree only considers terminals. Condensed form of parse tree. Okay. Constructing syntax tree for expression. Now this has been covered by Dhatri madam early, but this is in my syllabus, so I am quickly going to cover once again. So when we are, because this question has been asked many times in GTU, that write down SDD, syntax directed definition or translation scheme for creation of syntax tree using Dash calculator grammar. Means you have to first of all write Dash calculator grammar, then use it for creation of syntax tree and use that for writing translation scheme or Dash SDD. So what operations we use? We can create a leaf node or we can create a node. Okay, non-leaf node. For non-leaf node, it will contain what arguments? It is going to be operator node, so it will have operator, left pointer and right pointer, which will be pointing to operands. Whereas leaf nodes can be created in two ways. Either it is having a constant value or it is identifier node. If it is identifier node, then we will have a function like make leaf id comma symbol table entry of that id. If it is constant node, then we will make it like make leaf number comma value of that number. Okay, fine. So the following sequence of function creates the parse tree for a minus 4 plus c. Suppose we have to parse this expression. The lowest precedence operator over here is plus. So first of all, what we are going to do for applying plus, what we require first of all, c should be ready. So what we are going to do over here, p1 is equal to make leaf. Okay, they are drawing bottom up, and the lowest precedence operator that we have over here is highest precedence operation is minus. For applying minus, which node we will require plus? Left operand. What is left operand? A. So the first node, okay. So the sequence, whenever we are going to write sequence, we will have bottom up sequence only. So what is the first operation or first node which is going to be created? A. So make leaf id comma entry of A. Then the second node we are going to create is constant node. So make leaf num comma 4. The next node we have to create is for minus. So operator node, make node minus comma. See, whenever I call make leaf for ID or number, the pointer, we are going to create a pointer which will be pointing to these nodes. So what make node operator function is going to have? Left operand is P1 and right operand is P2. Now it is going to also generate a pointer P3 which will be pointing to this particular node. Okay. Now what is the next operation that I have to apply? Plus. But for that I require the right operand ready. So what you have to create? You have to create once again ID node C. So make leaf with ID node and entry to C in the symbol table. Again, it is going to point to a pointer. We are creating the pointer in sequence P1, P2, P3, P4, so we can use them efficiently. The next function which I'm going to create is the operator node plus. So make node plus. What is left operand? The P3 minus. This is the left operand. Hence P3. What is the right operand? This is the right operand C. So hence P4. So this is how we can parse the entire tree, and so this is the sequence in which the nodes are created, nodes are used. Okay, a syntax directed definition for constructing syntax tree. This has been asked many a times for 7 marks. So what two concepts it involves? You need to write down desk calculator grammar only, but wherever you have plus, you have to use make node function. Wherever you have even or e2, you have to create those leaf nodes also. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Everywhere you are using a leaf node, you have to call make leaf node. Everywhere you are using operator node, you have to use the make node for creating the operator. So the first operation we have is e derives e1 plus t. So what is equivalent SDD or semantic action? What operation this will perform? Plus operation. So how plus operation node can be created? Make node plus. Now what is the left operand? E1. So we will assume that E1 node is readily available. So we will call the pointer to that node as dot nptr, node pointer, or let us say dot ptr, pointer. So left operand is E1 dot ptr and right will be t dot ptr. We are assuming that nodes are available. E1 node and t node is already available. Leaf nodes are available. So only node that we have to create is plus, that is make node. So make node E1 dot nptr comma t dot nptr. Okay, fine. So after creating this node, the pointer which is created is e dot nptr. Okay, we will move ahead. Now e derives t. So what happens over here? The value of t is assigned to e. So it is simple pointer assignment. Hence e dot nptr is t dot nptr. Now this is a multiplication operation. So once again, node operator node need to be created. So make node function is called. Multiplication is the first value. Then left operand is t1. So pointer to t1, t1 dot ptr, pointer to f, f dot ptr. And the result generated is stored in which pointer? T dot and t dot ptr. Okay. Now t derives f. That is simply a pointer assignment. So t dot ptr is f dot ptr. Now f derives bracketed e. Once again, it is a pointer assignment only. So f dot ptr is equal to e dot ptr. F derives id. Now see, id is the terminal. id is the terminal, and hence the symbol table entry must be made over here. So f dot ptr is equal to id is a terminal, and hence which kind of node we are going to create? Leaf node. It is what kind of leaf node? id node. So make leaf id and make the entry in the symbol table entry dot id. It is going to be pointed by f dot PTR. So if the question is write down SDD for constructing syntax tree for the desk calculator grammar, the answer should be this. This 5 lines you write and 6 lines you write, and you get 7 marks for this. See, it's very simple. We remember this grammar. Simply what you have to do is wherever you have operator, the place of operator you should have make node. And finally for ID you should make leaf node. That's it. Okay. F derives number. In that case, what you have to do? Make leaf node with number and value, and f dot ptr will be pointing to that particular node. Okay. Let us move ahead a bit and discuss. Earlier, what we have discussed as attributor definition. What was as attributor definition? If your grammar contains only synthesized attributes, then your grammar is called as attributed grammar or as attributor definition. But what is L attributor definition? No, it is not reverse. That a grammar, if it has all inherited attributes, it will be called as attributor definition. No, it is not so. There are certain rules that need to be satisfied by grammar. Then only it will be called L attributed grammar. So a syntax directed definition is L attributed if each node has either synthesized attribute or inherits from the parent node or inherits from the left sibling. What all things are allowed? Synthesized means bottom to top value can be evaluated, parent to child value can be evaluated, left to right it can be evaluated, but right to left inheritance is not allowed. If all these conditions are satisfied by your attributed grammar, then that grammar is called L attributed grammar. In which condition your grammar is called L attributed grammar? Let me repeat. For each and every node, the value should be calculated such that either the value can be evaluated by the child node, means synthesized attributes are allowed. Either you can get the value from the parent node, either you can get value from the left sibling, but you can never get value from right sibling. It is not allowed. If all these conditions are satisfied by your grammar, then it is called L attributed grammar. Okay. So suppose this is the example, we will see whether it is satisfying the conditions or not. So A derives LM and the values are calculated like the value of L is evaluated by using the value of A, applying some function f. So the value of L node is calculated by value of which node? Parent node. We need not to worry about which function to apply. We are just focusing on the value of node is evaluated using which node? Parent node, child node, or which of the sibling nodes. So we can see whether it is satisfying the above given qualities or not. So A derives Lm. If the value of L is calculated using value of I, it is valid because parent to child inheritance is allowed. Okay. The value of M is evaluated using value of L. Okay, this is also allowed because the value of M is evaluated using the left sibling value. Left sibling inheritance is allowed. Okay. The next rule says the value of A is evaluated using the value of M. Means the parent's value is evaluated using the child value, child to parent. That is synthesized. So that is also allowed. Okay, fine. If we move ahead, suppose it is A derives QR, where the value of R is calculated using the value of A. Means value of R is calculated from parent node. Parent to child value calculation, that is also allowed. So this rule is also valid. But if I have a rule like this, that the value of Q is evaluated using the value of R, means the value of Q is evaluated with the value of right sibling. This is not allowed. So if this grammar, you have to check whether this grammar is L attributed or not. It is not L attributed grammar. Why? Because this particular semantic action is not satisfying the properties of L attributed grammar. Why? Because any node's value cannot be calculated using the right siblings value, which is happening over here. So you can state in the conclusion that because of this grammar is not. This question has also been asked in few of the question papers, that check whether the given grammar is valid L attributed grammar or not. It is not because of this quality. See, in this case, along with the grammar, the semantic action will also be given to you. You have to just check whether it is satisfying the given formulas or not. The value of A is calculated from the value of child node. Parent to child value is going, that is synthesized, which is allowed. So the only semantic action which is not satisfying our condition is this fifth one, and hence the given entire grammar is not L attributed definition. Okay, fine. Now this is all about writing syntax directed definitions. Now we are going to discuss how we are going to write translation schemes, how translation schemes can be written. So what we have discussed earlier, basically you can either write your attributed grammar using syntax directed definition, or you can write that as translation schemes. So the kind of questions in GTU paper are asked as write down SDD for this grammar, or write down translation scheme for this grammar. So writing translation schemes we'll be discussing in next lecture. So keep watching. Thank you. Also refer to PPTs. Make your concepts very clear, because it is very important for you. And if you get any query or doubt, then please come back and ask your queries or doubt to us. Thank you. So we are going to discuss translation scheme in the next part of this lecture. So keep watching the lecture. This is very important, because this concept, every time you have 7 marks question, which is very easy and fixed question is asked, once you have understand, you can write it very easily. Okay, so keep watching.